Hey, Paul Markle, host of Student of the Gun Radio, here, coming right at you from sunny Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, in addition to preparing for the radio show, we've also been doing some serious storm preparation. Not that we aren't normally prepared, but when there is a tropical storm or a hurricane blowing off the coast, as there is right at this moment, you need to do stuff like top off the truck, fill up some extra sandbags and all that jazz. So in addition to recording this radio show for you, as soon as we're done, we're going to finish our storm prep. So if we wash away this next week, you'll know why. Jared's over there on the other side of the board. He's happy to be here. And we had a fantastic week. We can't wait to tell you all about it. But before we get into that, we want to let you know that we've got, we always have some fantastic sponsors. And we have some winners. Now, Crossbreed Holsters, they're winners because they provide some of the most comfortable in-the-waistband concealed carry holsters that you could possibly wear. And you can check them out at crossbreedholsters.com. Now, of course, our friends down there in Cocoa, Florida, the hardworking folks at Keltec Firearms, can be found at keltecweapons.com. Check out the PMR 30, the KSG, and all that jazz. And our good friend Gary Lamp down there in Florida is enjoying... Yeah, Jared's giving me that eyes. He's like, is that it? Yep, it's Gary. It's Gary Lamp. Gary, I got your name right this week. So we're sure that Gary's down there enjoying the KSG shotgun that he won from us and Keltec. Because why? Because he's a student of the gun.
I don't remember if I said this last week or not, but Gary, if you have pictures, post it to our Facebook so everybody can see and they can be jealous.
There you go. There you go. Now, we've been talking for the last couple of weeks about our tactical response training giveaway, because here at Student of the Gun, we are obviously big on training and education. And we have our first winner. That's right. The October winner is Eric Williams. Now, Eric, we sent him an email yesterday. He already confirmed it, and that brings us to a good point. Jared, if you send somebody an email and say, congratulations, you're the winner, how long do they have to respond to that?
They have exactly 24 hours. Okay. Sometimes I'll give you a couple extra hours just because I can't get there in time.
Yeah, so if you are entered in the contest, and hey, if you're a student of the gun, you are, we think that's fair. I mean, 24 hours. If you don't check your email every 24 hours, and, well, I don't know.
Well, if
you're Amish.
If we wait longer than 24 hours, then it's not really fair for everybody that's waiting to hear who the winner is.
That is true. We got 12,000 plus people out there that are just chomping at the bit, waiting to find out if they're the winner. Well, let me remind you guys what Eric Williams, what he will receive. He's going to receive the free tuition or complimentary tuition to any 2-day class that Tactical Response offers. And that's fighting pistol, fighting rifle, fighting shotgun, their force-on-force class called The Fight. They have another medical class called Immediate Action Medical. Those are all 2-day classes that you can take. So we still have 2 more winners to pick from that. We're going to be picking one in November and another one in December. And remember, we pick our winners for our contest. It's ridiculously easy. If you sign up for the Student of the Gun newsletter, go to studentofthegun.com, sign up for the newsletter, you get the newsletter, you're automatically entered. Now, if you buy something from our store, Jared's giving me that look, he's like, don't forget to tell him. If you go to studentofthegungear.com and you buy anything, buy a sticker, a t-shirt, the book, the DVD, anything. If you buy anything from studentofthegungear.com, your name is automatically put into the hat. You are registered to win. We've given away the Chris Vector carbine package, dozens of holsters, flashlights.
The Keltec PMR 30, the KSG.
Oh, we gave away a PMR 30 last year. We gave away a KSG. We gave away 6 Diamondback pocket pistols in 380 and 9mm.
And if you're already entered to win, you can get bonus entries by purchasing our products, or if you like us on all of our social media, for each one you like, you get a bonus entry. That's
right. And it's going to benefit you because, quite frankly, we're all the time putting new material up. We share that material. We let you guys know, hey, we've got a new video, we've got new this, new that. Especially if it's in the middle of the week between shows. The show comes out every Monday, but it might be Thursday and we come up with a new video or a new article or something. So you want to be paying attention to Student of the Gun. We're the largest free training university in the firearms world. So if you haven't signed up yet, take the time to sign up, and it's easy and it's free. So check it out.
And you know what we don't do?
What?
We don't spam
That's right. We will not spam you. We won't spam you.
or sell your stuff.
Now, in addition to all that, we also what did we do this week, Jared? Tell everybody. We had a big week at Student of the Gun. We got a new article up, we've got a new video up, brand new material, and a lot of it is based upon an experience that we had on Tuesday. And Jared's going to go ahead and give us the setup, and I'll continue.
On Tuesday, we got to go to the local airport. We went to Gulfport, Biloxi, or what is it, Gulfport? Well, anyway, it's the Gulfport Airport.
Biloxi International.
Yeah, and we got to welcome the Honor Flight members, which was a very heartwarming experience. There was upwards of 1,000 people there, and Paul's about to explain our experience going into the airport. Not even when we got there, but on the way.
Well, before we if you guys were following the news this week, what you'll know probably is that a group of veterans, World War II veterans, if you don't know what the Honor Flight is, you can check it out. Just go to honorflight.org and check them out. But essentially what they do is the Honor Flight organization provides free of charge trips for World War II veterans to go visit the National World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. And they've been doing this for several years now. My grandfather, Charles McClellan, was at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. He was injured there. He recuperated and served out the rest of his tour in the Navy till 1946. And he, a couple of years back, took an honor flight to go up there. Well, they, as you can imagine, as time ticks by, as it does, our World War II veterans are leaving us, and they're leaving us at a rapid pace. And so the Honor Flight guys have really been stepping it up. As a matter of fact, the current Honor Flight, when they opened it up for applications, they had 50 more applications than they originally had seats. So what they did is they went out, and it's all private donations. It's not government money. They went out and they raised even more money, and they had over 90. I think it might have been 92, but it was over 90 veterans plus their guardians. A guardian is essentially a younger person who helps them, because most of these guys, they're in their upper 80s or in their 90s. But what made this a unique honor flight, made it different than all of the other ones that have occurred, is the fact that when they flew out and they got to Washington, D.C., they got on their buses, they went to the World War II Memorial, and what did they find? They found that the spoiled babies in Washington, D.C. had blocked off and put barricades around the World War II Memorial. Now, this isn't the Smithsonian where you have to go inside and you have guided tours, and this is an open-air memorial. You don't need people there to walk you around it. But because of the vindictive nature of the current occupant of the White House, they ordered that it be closed. So here we've got 90 plus World War II veterans, anywhere from age 85 to 99 years old. And they're being told initially, oh, there it is, there's your memorial. You can't go in. Because the spoiled babies up in D.C. who 2 weeks ago had plenty of cash to go to war with Syria now don't have enough cash to open up the memorials or to just leave them open.
It seems to me that they would be spending more money putting up the barriers than they would just to let it open.
Doesn't that seem like it to you folks? And for any of you who have totally naive or deceitful friends who will tell you that this was a last-minute thing and that they worked right up to the last minute to try and come to a deal and they just couldn't. All the signs that they printed and put up around these memorials that say park closed due to government shutdown, when do you think those signs got printed? They didn't get printed overnight. They knew this was coming. They planned on it. They deliberately did it. Don't be naive, folks. Don't allow people to sucker you into, oh, this is just something that couldn't be avoided. Comrade Barry and his cohorts did this deliberately. I'm not. All right. And Jared told me not to get too far deep into this, but all right. So what happened was Stephen Palazzo, the Republican House representative from Mississippi, was planning to be there to welcome the veterans from Mississippi. So he was there. Michelle Bachmann from Iowa was there. And when they found out that these veterans could not get in, as a matter of fact, Stephen Palazzo had written a letter to the administration specifically requesting them to keep the memorial open so when the tour got there, they wouldn't be impeded. And apparently they, I don't know what they did with that letter. Apparently they threw it away or put it in the trash or shredded it. It's right next to the Constitution in the shredder pile up there at the White House. So Palazzo and Bachmann and several other Republican representatives, and I know a lot of you guys are there, Republicans, Democrats are all the same. Okay, I'm with you on that, but I tell you who was not there. There wasn't one stinking Democrat there to assist or aid these people. So just put that in your pipe and smoke it for a little bit. They moved the barricades. They physically moved the barricades so that these guys could get in there. They went and they laid a wreath at the Mississippi section of the World War II Memorial, and they were allowed to go through there. Well, we knew this was going on. We're here back in Biloxi, Mississippi, and we knew what's going on. We had planned to go to the airport Monday. We had made the plans Monday to go to the airport on Tuesday evening.
Let me make a real quick point before you go any farther. That is the difference between allowed and able. These veterans who most of them were in wheelchairs, they still managed to get past these barriers. They had help from a few people, but they pushed past them.
Yeah, there's allowed and able. You're not allowed. Well, are you able to do it? So we knew they were coming back, and we had planned to go to the airport to welcome them home because they leave really early in the morning, and generally the welcome home is the big whatever airport they fly out of, whether it's Mississippi or Dallas or Atlanta or wherever. You welcome back the World War II veterans. You welcome back the honor flight. We were driving over there, and we weren't really sure what to expect. I had no idea. They announced it on the local radio program, and the local news had done a story about it. We got there. It took 3 light cycles for us to turn left onto Airport Road. We had to wait through 3 light cycles to get there. There was a caravan, and when we got there, we found that there were hundreds upon hundreds of people there. Now, we want you to go ahead and go to studentofthegun.com, because at studentofthegun.com, what we did, obviously, is we took our cameras with us. We did a video. Jared recorded and edited a video that's up right now. I wrote an article about our experience. But we want you to, if I can encourage you to take a moment to watch the video, to read the article, to really get a feeling for what it was like to have been there. And there was hardly a dry eye in the entire place. It was heartwarming. It was an experience. It was part of history. And we're glad that we were able to be there.
I'm sitting here right now and the hairs are standing up on the back of my neck just thinking about it.
Yeah. So go ahead and if you have the moment, go over to studentofthegun.com and you look in the blog section there, and the new article's up, the new video's up, and you can check that out and see our experience honoring the World War II veterans who took the honor flight on Tuesday, October 1st, 2013. Now, good guy of the week. We have been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, and our first good guy has already been chosen. We had one last week, and their name's already been forwarded on to Excess Sites, because what Excess Sites does is they make products for bona fide, genuine good guys. And if you are our student of the week, then you will be our Student of the Gun Excess Sites good guy. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you a good guy package. You'll get a hat and a T-shirt and a tote bag and all kinds of cool stuff from them. And all you have to do, as you guys should know by now, all you have to do is submit a question. You can put it on Facebook and just tag it Student of the Week. Or Jared, you want the stuff sent directly to you, or tell them?
Yeah, if you guys are the Student of the Week, go ahead and email Jared at studentofthegun.com your information, which is your address, your phone number, and your shirt size.
Yeah, so if we read you, if you're listening to us and you say, hey, that's me, I asked that question, you just need to send Jared a message at jared@studentofthegun.com, give him your information, and we'll hook you up. Now, right now, Jared's going to go ahead and tell us who our Student of the Gun the week is, who the Student of the Week is, and what was their question.
Our Student of the Week is David Oberdiek. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he's talking about the police. It says, I ran across a police information sheet that advises people to cooperate with an armed robber. It says, in most situations, robbers almost never hurt anyone who cooperates. Is this true? And what do you think about police giving such advice?
All right, we've seen that. We've been dealing with that for years. As a matter of fact, our illustrious police chief in Biloxi, the Biloxi Police Department, has put out and this is really disappointing for us, and I don't know if they're going to listen because there's a lot of bureaucrats in city government, but they put out a poster that says how to deal with crime. And essentially, I guess I can't hit the Biloxi police except that it was just stupid for them to put it out. But this advice has been floating around for not years, decades, more than decades. This is 1964 advice. This is I watched a movie and the robber had a black and white striped shirt and he was unshaven and he had a black mask over his eyes and he snuck and he burgled my house. Okay. People have this image of that's the robber, the criminal, the burglar. It's this guy, this unshaven guy with a black knit cap on who slinks around at night, waiting for you to go out so he can pick the lock on the back of your house and break in and steal your TV. That's Hollywood fantasy. It's not anywhere close to reality. Take it from somebody who's been involved in this for basically my entire adult life. I've spent my entire adult life either working as a United States Marine, as a police officer, as a professional bodyguard, as a security professional. And what I can tell you is that advice, I've heard that for a long time. When I was in the Marine Corps many, many moons ago, and I remember our first, this is during the Cold War, our first overseas terrorism briefings. And if you're ever caught in a hijacking, if you're in a hijacking, and they gave this advice for years, decades even. If you are involved in a hijacking, do not confront your hijackers. Look at the floor. Do not make eye contact. Do not, and they always ended up with attempt to be a good witness. That's what you're supposed to do. Be a good witness. And we've been putting this out here for, security experts and law enforcement professionals. This is one of those things that there's a lot of stuff in our arena that sounds reasonable. So we just keep regurgitating it over and over and over again, never thinking about it, but we just keep saying it. Just be a good witness. Well, let me ask you guys out there. You're smart. You're, ladies and gentlemen, you guys are intelligent. Heck, you found Student of the Gun Radio. You're listening to me right now. Obviously, that shows that you have a higher than normal level of intelligence. What happened on 9/11/2001? What happened? We had airplanes that were taken over by people with machine guns and grenades and pistols, right? And some of you are scratching your head. You're like, no, Paul. It wasn't machine guns and grenades and pistols. They took them over with what? Everybody should know by now, unless you went to public school in the last 20 years. What did they take over the planes with? Did they sneak handguns in through the food service cart so they could, hijack the plane? Sneak grenades on? No. What did they have with them? Small knives and box cutters. And did they sneak those on illegally? No, because at the time, it was perfectly legal to bring small knives and box cutters onto airplanes. I used to do it all the time. When I was in the Marine Corps, I traveled with a Swiss Army knife in my carry-on bag all the time, every time. Well, ask yourself. You're like, oh, yeah, but they were professionally trained hijackers. Okay, there was anywhere from, 3 to 4, maybe 5 of them total, because we had how many planes? 1, 2, 3, 4? 4 planes. How are 4 guys, let's just say 4 for an even number, with box cutters that have a 1 inch, 2 inch max blade. How were 4 guys able to take over an entire airliner filled with adults? How? I'll tell you how. Because the hijackers that got on those planes knew the professional security advice. You think they hadn't read the pamphlets? You think they hadn't heard the professional security and law enforcement advice? What have we been telling airline passengers for years, for decades? In the event of a hijacking, do not attempt to be a hero. Look at the floor. Do not argue with your blah, 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 blah. Be a good witness, and you'll be released at the other end. It'll be inconvenience, but it'll be a neat story. They're going to fly you to Cuba or Miami or wherever, right? We've heard that for years. And up till that point, that's what the norm was. You know, hijackers never hijacked planes and used them as weapons. They used them as political statements to go to Lebanon or whatever. So the hijackers knew that every single person on that plane had been deliberately trained to be subservient. They had been trained to be sheep. And even if they weren't trained to be sheep, even if there was 1 or 2 guys on there that wanted to fight back, what else did they know? They knew that the other passengers would discourage that. Don't be a hero. Don't do anything. Don't make them mad. And it was only because of the magic of the cell phone that the people on Flight 93 knew to fight back. How did they know to fight back? Well, because people on the ground told them, the first 2 planes just crashed into buildings. These guys who have your plane aren't going to hijack it to demand that their fellow prisoners be released from a jail in Israel somewhere. They're going to kill you. They're going to smash this plane into a national monument or something similar. And it wasn't until, and does anybody else find it ironic that every one of these planes had people on them using their cell phones, and yet the cell phones didn't cause the plane? How were the hijackers able to maneuver the planes into the Twin Towers if people on the planes were using their cell phones? I thought that a cell phone would disable the navigation system of a plane and it would go down. That craziness and airport bologna sausage aside, why did that happen on 9/11? Because everyone on the plane had read the sign, had been trained, had been taught, be a good victim and just surrender. Be a good witness. And you know what? That works out really well until what? Until the bad guy decides there aren't going to be any witnesses. And that's not what I'm here for. We saw this, and we should have learned our lesson from this, but we're slow learners, Americans. We are slow learners. What happened in Columbine? I'll tell you exactly what happened in Columbine. What we had is we had the bad guys changing the playbook and the good guys operating on the old playbook. The playbook for an active shooter for years and years and years, and we didn't even call them active shooters, they were just in-progress calls. You know, robbery in progress, bank robbery, kidnapping, whatever, in progress. Well, what happens when you have an in-progress call? Well, the standard for a policeman or patrolman, a trooper, or a sheriff's deputy is to secure the perimeter and wait. So what happened? In Columbine, they get the call, something's going wrong. There's people with guns in the school. So the original people on scene, what playbook do they have? They have the old playbook that says, if you're the first one on scene, don't enter. Secure the perimeter, wait for SWAT. Because normally, back in the olden days, where they would take people at gunpoint and they would take them as hostages and they would negotiate for $1 million and a helicopter and all that jazz. That was the old playbook. Well, the bad people had changed the playbook, and that was no longer the case. They didn't want a helicopter. They didn't want $1 million. They didn't want their fellow, freedom fighters to be released from some prison somewhere. They wanted to terrorize the people in the building and to kill them. That was their goal. And the only way to make them stop was to have good guys come in and stop them. surrendering, being a good witness, putting your hands over your head, none of that was going to stop them. And you would think, you're like, okay, Paul, well, here we are. We're in 2013. We've had all these incidents. We've had numerous incidents. And even on a less grand scale, we talked about the Cracker Barrel murders and how, the employees did what they were supposed to do. They followed the employee handbook. And when the robbers came in, they surrendered. They gave the robbers all the money, because what's supposed to happen? Well, the robber is supposed to take all the money and leave until he decides he's not going to do that, and he's going to murder all of you. That didn't really work out for them. And we talked about that. What about the Atlanta torture murder deaths of Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom?
That story makes me sick. That's the first time I've actually heard of that. And
Really?
Yeah. I've never heard of that before.
Well, you know why you've never heard of it? Because Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom were a young Caucasian couple. And they were kidnapped, raped, tortured, and murdered by 5 people that weren't Caucasian. And we can't report that. Now be completely honest with yourself. I don't care what skin tone you currently possess. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you're intellectually honest with yourself, I want you to ask yourself, 5 rednecks, 5 white people, 5 Caucasian people kidnap a young black woman and a black man. They rape, torture, and murder them. If that happened in 2007, it would still be the leading. Ask yourself, if that happened in 2007, would it still be the leading story on CNN every night? And if you don't believe so, I don't think you're intellectually honest. I don't believe you're being intellectually honest with yourself. But when you have a media that only feeds you what they think you need to see or need to hear about, that's what you get. That's why many of you out in the audience right now probably don't know about this young couple and the horror that was inflicted upon them simply for being out in public.
If I read this story out loud on this microphone, we would have to have an explicit rating because it's so bad.
Yes, Jared's going to put it up on the show notes. And remember, if you want to read the show notes, go to studentofthegunradio.com. That's studentofthegunradio.com. All right, so getting back on track, getting back on our Be a Good Witness. Why is it, ask yourself, why is it that people give this advice? Now, we've talked about this previously. I did a whole article about never throw the first punch and fire only if fired upon and so forth. Well, one of the reasons is the people that dole out this advice, this wonderful advice to you to just be a good victim and surrender, don't make your attacker mad. Well, number one, the people that are giving the advice never, ever assume that they're going to have to take that advice. They're giving it in the abstract. They're giving it so that they sound reasonable, that they can put themselves on the elitist ground, on the upper ground. Well, listen to how reasonable I am. I'm going to tell you to just be a good victim. Folks, that advice infuriates me. It sickens me, and it literally angers me. Because, number one, it is completely elitist, it is unrealistic, and it goes against every fiber of my nature to tell an innocent person. What you're telling someone, essentially, is, yes, you're out living your life, harming no one. A piece of human debris, or several pieces of human debris, oxygen thieves, people who would be better off if used as fertilizer, approach you and decide they're going to rob you, harm you, rape you, do whatever. They're like, oh, this isn't rape, it's just about robbery. Really? That's what they thought at the Cracker Barrel, that it was just about robbery until it became a triple homicide. Let me tell you a little bit something about the psychology of monsters. If you surrender to a monster, you give him psychological permission to do greater harm to you. You understand that? Every human being on planet Earth, if they're drawing breath and they have a functioning brain, whether they're a vermin or not, whether they're evil or not, justifies their actions, if for nothing else, in their own minds. All right, Ted Bundy justified his actions in his own mind. Serial killers, when they're, the FBI does their famous interviews of serial killers afterwards, they always find that the serial killers will completely justify their actions. And you're like, but that's crazy and it's sick and it's twisted. It doesn't matter whether you think it's crazy, whether you think it's sick, whether you can't fathom a human being doing that to another human being. Doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's not about what you think. It's about them. And the fact that they are in front of you, preventing you from leaving, preventing you from going about your business, the fact that they are there means that there is a problem and you need to deal with that problem. Now, let's say you're invalid, that you're completely helpless and you have no other choice but to surrender. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that is your lot in life. But I am also going to go out on a limb here and say that almost no one that is hearing this voice right now, my voice, almost none of you are genuinely helpless. None of you. Colonel Tim, who we've talked about before. Colonel Tim lost both of his legs above the knee in Iraq. Colonel Tim is still active duty Army. Colonel Tim went through a 3-day fighting rifle and pistol course, even though he needs to use a wheelchair.
He got out of the wheelchair a couple times.
Oh, he got out of the wheelchair, did what he needed to do. And we talked to Colonel Tim, and because we've had people who have contacted the show and say, I have limited physical abilities. And what should I do? And I really, if you missed this last season, you really missed a good episode. But, I was fortunate to be able to sit down with Tim, and I said, look, people have contacted the show. They said, I have limited physical abilities. I live in a wheelchair. What should I do? And me, Paul Markle, I can't answer that. And he said, I'll answer that question because I'm there. And he said, you know what? This is the voice of Colonel Tim, who is missing both of his legs above the knee because of an attack in Iraq. And he said, life sucks. He goes, it's not fair. He goes, but that's the way it is, and you need to find a way to work around it. If you have physical limitations, is it going to be tougher? Sure it is. You can either tough it out, figure out a way to make the world work for you, or you can give up. Those are your choices. And like I said, that's not my words. Those are Tim's words.
He said that you have to choose your priorities, and one of his main priorities was protecting himself and his family. Exactly.
But if you listen to so-called security and law enforcement experts, they're not telling you, oh, you have physical limitations, don't defend yourself. They're telling everyone, don't defend yourself. Don't defend yourself. Just give up.
If a bad person already has the mentality and he's coming up and attacking somebody that has physical limitations, what is going through that person's brain? What's going to stop him from doing more harm than, I don't understand. He's already got.
Oh, don't look for mercy.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate. This is the New York liberal elitist hippie mentality. They'll appreciate how cooperative I am and therefore be nicer to me. And these same people, these same dimwits, and I'm going to call them dimwits, and let me tell you what, if you are out there wearing a uniform or not wearing a uniform, and you are telling the American citizenry, if you're looking at them putting up posters and advice and saying, don't fight back, just give the robber what they want, you're doing this nation a disservice, and you need to stop it. You need to stop it. This nation is not founded by a bunch of victims, and it offends the heck out of me. How's that for a PG rating, Jared? It offends the heck out of me to hear people or to see so-called professionals trying to convince the American citizen to be a sheep, to be subservient. I'm tired of it. You were not born to be a slave. If you were born in the United States of America, or if God bless you, you went through all of the legal channels, and the legal channels are tough. Going through the legal channels to enter the United States is hard. It's difficult. It requires serious effort. If you did all that and you are now an American citizen, awesome. I'm glad that you're here. But let me tell you what, this country was not founded to be the home of sheep, of subservient slave creatures. And those who tell you that you should be are not doing you any favors. As a matter of fact, I would say that they are contributing to your slavery. And don't listen to them. You know, Bloomberg. I haven't talked about Nanny Bloomberg in a while, but I'll go ahead and throw this out there. You know, look at the news, read the news. What do you see goes on in New York? Well, we got two things. We got, number one, the Manhattan Supreme Court says that police officers have no special duty to protect you as a citizen. And then on the other hand, we've got Nanny Bloomberg and his thugs arresting citizens that defend themselves and trying to put them in jail for defending themselves. Then we've got Nanny Bloomberg's troops. We've got his men in blue out there on the streets, shooting up the streets and putting bullets into innocent bystanders. Sorry, if you're listening to me in New York and this offends you, tough noogies. Tough, brother. So, David, my answer to you is, short answer, is no. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't try to be good witnesses. You're like, well, what if I fight and I get hurt? What if I fight and I die? Then you die with dignity. Then you fought with dignity. Because what I'm telling you is this. If you surrender, if you lower your eyes, humans are animals, and lowering your eyes is a sign of submission. You make it easier psychologically for the bad person to do additional harm to you. Do you understand that? By surrendering, you're encouraging them to do you additional harm.
And by surrendering, they're going to go along to the next victim and the next victim and the next victim and the next victim until somebody finally stands up. So just get it over with and do it. You're
reinforcing that behavior. Now you say, well, all right, Paul, I'm listening to you, but I just can't. I can't. I'm sorry that you can't. But there's a difference between I'm not able to and I'm unwilling to. And look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself this hard question. Are you unable to, or are you unwilling? Because those are not the same.
And with that point, let's move on to the go team moment where somebody actually did fight back.
That's right. You may not be aware of this because this doesn't fit the media template. You know, the media template is all citizens are victims, and that only the government should be allowed to have firearms, even though they do have a tendency to shoot up the citizenry. But, you know, sometimes you just got to do that. And you may not be aware of this because it wasn't that popular of a story in the big-time media. But a former Marine cook in Atlanta was walking home from work one night. He got out of the Marine Corps. He was waiting tables. He was working at a restaurant, and he was walking home. And at the time, there were gangs of bad people in Atlanta. You go ahead and paint your own picture there. And they were just randomly robbing people that were out on the street because, you know, when you're on the street, you should be robbed. So they pull up to this guy. 5 of them jump out of the car, and they're like, give us your wallet, give us everything you got. So our hero decides he's not going to have any of that, and he takes off. He's like, well, I can flee. He starts to flee, but apparently there were more of them. Well, obviously there were more of them than him, and they were younger. And his name was Thomas Autry, Ura, Semper Fi, Thomas. And once he was cornered, he said, well, all right. He yelled for help. Nobody was coming. The 5 of them cornered him. They had a handgun and a shotgun, his assailants did. And what Thomas Autry was able to do was to fish out a folding pocket knife out of his backpack. So armed with a folding pocket knife versus 5 attackers armed with a pistol and a shotgun. He fought back. He kicked the shotgun out of the one guy's hand. He stabbed the other person. He went to work with his knife. And you know what they said? The bad guys, holy crap, this is no fun anymore. You're not supposed to fight back. And they caught them. They caught the bad people because one of them went to the morgue. The other one was in critical condition. I don't know whether they lived or died. And after it was all over with, the police said, you know what? These people here are responsible for committing several robberies in this same fashion. They had been on a string. Because, all right, if you think that the guy who's robbing you, that you're his first victim ever, and you're going to be his last victim ever because he's just out of work and, you know, life's been bad to him, so he just decided he had to rob you. You're a fool and you're naive. No, they're just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And these vermin here in Atlanta, if Autry would have been, you know, the typical victim, oh, here, take everything I have, they would have just continued right on doing it. But now they're not doing it anymore because some are in jail and some are worm food.
You want to know something that annoys me about this news story?
Go ahead.
This quote, I'm going to read a quote from this story. It says, he kicked the shotgun out of one of the attacker's hands and stabbed both a 17-year-old girl who jumped on him and a man who also attacked him. Are they trying to make him sound like a barbarian by pointing out that it was a 17-year-old girl? Because they didn't give anybody else's age
or anybody else's. Yeah, they didn't give the sex. Or, well, I tell you what, if you're a 17-year-old girl and you are part of a group that goes around committing armed robbery, you're making bad choices. And sorry, but what you get is what you get.
Am I wrong for being annoyed by that?
No, you're absolutely right. That's how liberals write news stories. They can't help themselves. They can't. This particular story comes to us from the Seattle Times. So there you go. But good catch, Jared. Yeah, they didn't mention any of the other ages or sex or anything, but they decided to just drop that in there for effect. And I'm sure that's what it was for. It was dropped in there for emotional effect.
All right, let's move on to the slave state news. And before we go into the actual slave state news, we got a message from somebody from New Jersey saying that they are taking action there. And I just wanted to kind of go over a couple of the things that they're doing for those of you who are in a slave state to give you an idea of what you can possibly do. It says, we have a right to carry case appearing before New Jersey Supreme Court, which is one of the things that they're doing there. So start one of those. Let me read down a little bit farther. He says, we also have a case that just argued in the Third Circuit Federal Court, which will now go on to the United States Supreme Court, and they have successfully blocked pieces of anti-gun legislation. And that's all I can see as of right now. But the point is that you guys can do something.
Are they working to remove the ban on BB guns and slingshots?
Maybe
Maybe
that's in the right to carry. They want to carry BB guns and slingshots or something. Yeah,
that could be. Well, you know, and I know we've said for, you know, it's funny. We've said for weeks and months now that if we ever want to get email from people, we just need to mention their state in the show, and then we'll get something from them. But you know, we got an email. I guess we can't win for losing, Jared, because if we talk about someone's state, they write us in to tell us we're either right or wrong. And we just got one from somebody in Connecticut who's like, hey, how come you don't talk about what a slave state Connecticut is too? Because we are. So, hey, Connecticut's a slave state. So shout out to the slave state of Connecticut.
That's funny. The guy that wrote in from New Jersey says that he fully agrees that we are the People's Republic of New Jersey and clearly a slave state, but he just wanted to give some actions that could be taken.
Okay. Well, and excellent. But and I tell you what, it's a cautionary tale for the rest of the world, because once you give up, once you get to a certain point, once you get past a tipping point, once you go down the reasonable road, you're finished. It's like England. After all those the British slaves just stood around on the street and watched a soldier get his head hacked off by a bunch of jihadists and took cell phone videos of it. And I was just horrified by that, and we didn't really hit on it here. But, You know, anyway, after that story came out, there's a couple of follow-up stories about how British citizens want their gun rights back. And I had to laugh. I'm like, yeah, the eunuch wants his testicles back too, but that's not going to happen.
So does the Biloxi police chief.
That's right. And once you go down that road, once you've accepted the path of reasonableness like California did, you know, all of our friends in California who like to tell us, you know, for the last 5-10 years have been telling me, I've had California friends tell me, oh, no, Paul, yeah, there's some restrictions, but there's a lot of gun owners in California, and we can own guns, and we can do this, and, you know, we just have to follow certain guidelines because that's just reasonable. Folks, it's never enough, and as long as you go down the I'm going to be reasonable, they're going to take it until it's too late. Until you find yourself fighting. I mean, you've got people in New Jersey and California and New York and whatever fighting to get back things that have never been taken away in free America, in Louisiana and Mississippi and Texas and Arizona. Things that we take that are commonplace to us, you're fighting to get that back. Well, you should have never let it go in the first place. You should have never allowed yourself to go down that reasonable road. And there's a lot of reasons why that happens. But we need to get into the slave state news, so I'm going to jump on it right now. Massachusetts, Dateline, Massachusetts, police chief confiscates man's guns for immaturity, in quotes. And you're like, what? Yeah, apparently, when you live in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, well, first of all, if you are in a state or a commonwealth or whatever, a People's Republic, where you have to get permission from the government to own a gun. We've told you for years that this is a bad idea. It's not a reasonable idea. It's one of those things that they'll tell you is no big deal until it is. Well, in Massachusetts, just like in Illinois, which is another big slave state, you have to have a firearms owner's identification card. Yes, you have to seek permission from the state to own a firearm, which A, violates the Bill of Rights, and it is unconstitutional, but you convince yourself up there that, oh, it's no big deal. Well, it's no big deal until they decide to take your ID card, your FOID card, or your FID card. And once they've revoked your FID card, you can no longer own guns. You're like, well, yeah, but they only revoke them for things like, you know, felony charges and being, a convicted rapist and or a murderer, you know, and that's the only. Oh, really? Really? Well, according to this news story right here, we get it from gunsavelive.net, and there's been a lot of other stories. Is a young man named Matthew Plouffe. I'm not sure if it's Plouffe. So however you would pronounce that, is 19 years old. And so he can own, we know that the federal government has decided that no one under age 21 is mature enough to own a handgun, but you can own rifles and shotguns. Well, he's a good little slave up there in Massachusetts, and he has his firearms identification ID card, you know, that the permission from the king to own firearms. Well, apparently he had been out and he had been shooting his guns with some, and it says minors, with the minor's permission. Okay, or the minor's parents' permission. Yeah, so, but he was pulled over on an unrelated incident. Stopped on an unrelated incident, not related to shooting, and they realized that he owned guns and he was a gun owner. Well, the police chief of, what is the city here? Give me the city real quick, Jared. You're looking at the thing.
I'm not seeing a city.
There's got to be a city. Oh, of Dighton, D-I-G-H, Dighton.
It's probably Dighton.
Dighton, of Dighton, Massachusetts. The police chief decided that he was too immature. He questioned his maturity level, and so they just decided to go to his house, this police chief and a sergeant, and confiscate his guns. Well, you're like, yeah, but he went through due process of law. You know, they follow the Fourth Amendment, right? And they went through due process, and they got a warrant and went before a judge. And before you can take someone's lawfully owned property, you have to go through the due process of law, right? No, Not in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, we just decide, the agents of the king just decide at any point in time to go ahead and take your property. Because. Too bad. And that's that. If you haven't heard about this, you should have, but it's going to be up in the show notes. We just thought you'd enjoy that. Anytime that you allow yourself, put yourself in a position where you have to get permission from the king to own a gun, remember, if they're giving you permission, they can take that permission away at any time.
All right, let's move on to our weekly vagination report.
All right, vagination in America. We know what that is. We're turning the nation into blank. You know the name. You probably have already seen the story about the 8-year-old boy who was suspended from school for making a finger gun. Because apparently in America today, making a finger gun is now an act of violence. So I think suspending an 8-year-old boy from school for making a finger gun, I think that is an act of psychological terrorism on the part of the school. But hey, if you have your kids in a public school and they terrorize your children, stop acting surprised. That is what they do. That is their MO. Now this next one we've got, this is horrible. And it's a good thing that the school caught this and stopped it, because Lord knows it could have been terrible. Yes, a 12-year-old boy was suspended from school after he brought a gun-shaped keychain to school. What? Did it look like a Glock 17? Did it look like a Beretta M9? Well, it looked like one of those little mini Derringers. This is one of those little made-in-China toys. There's a photo of it, and we'll put the link up for you guys. It's about the size of a quarter. It's a little bit bigger than the size of a quarter. Well, this boy's crime, he had gone to the arcade and won it in one of those little machines, put it in his backpack, went to school. It fell out of his backpack. One of the other children picked it up and was showing children. And a teacher saw it and apparently peed a little bit down his or her leg. We're not sure. We're going to assume that even if it was born a male, that it is now a female. But it peed down its leg, and they freaked out. They've suspended this little boy. And this happened in Rhode Island, because we don't want Rhode Island. We kind of forget about Rhode Island because it is such a little pimple on the butt of the United States. But apparently Rhode Island, they don't want to be left out in the slave state game too. I mean, they're up there in slave state central. They're surrounded by Connecticut.
Well, at least it wasn't a slingshot. Yeah,
if it was a slingshot, thousands could have died. Thousands could have died. Now, for those of you who, you reasonable people out there, the few of you that are actually left listening to my show, you reasonable people think, well, the school has a zero tolerance policy against any firearm or replica firearm or anything that resembles a firearm because why? Because why? Because we want to ingrain in the children's brains that guns are bad and that only the king and the troops who represent the king should be allowed to have them. It's brainwashing. It's psychological terrorism. Stop it. Stop allowing. You know what, America? They're like, well, what do you expect us to do, Paul? We can't do anything. We're just sitting out here. Well, you're supposed to be in charge. The parents are supposed to be in charge of the local school system. When I grew up, the parents were in charge. They had a parent-teacher organization. Okay, you had elected school board administrators. Where you live, are the school board members elected or are they appointed by the king? I would bet you they're elected. Well, you know what? Start unelecting these turds. And when it comes down to this psychological terrorism, go get yourself an attorney and start suing the pants off of these people. Well, I don't know if we stop. Fight. I'm sick of surrendering. I'm sick of Americans. I'm sick of Americans who think it's a good idea to surrender. And that's what that is. And, I'm sorry, but folks, stop acting surprised when the public school system brainwashes and terrorizes your children, because that's their MO. That's in 2013. That's what they're all about. They're not about reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're about terrorizing your kids. So I guarantee you, I could almost put I'll put Jared's paycheck on the that by the time we have to record this show again next week, another public school will have terrorized another child. So now, you guys, we've been extremely busy here at Student of the Gun. Jared has been one busy little beaver, because why? Well, because we're producing television. And if you're not watching Student of the Gun TV, shame on you, but it is available and it's out there. Dish Network, channel 266, 7 o'clock on Sunday nights Eastern. Check it out. If you are on the East Coast and you're a subscriber to Shentel HD cable, you'll be happy to know that Student of the Gun is going to be on your cable system. That's right. You'll be able to watch us on Shentel, so you can just check that out if you live in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, up there on the East Coast.
And if you want us on your cable television, email your cable provider and say, get Student of the Gun.
That's right. Email your cable. Say, hey, why don't you have Student of the Gun? What's wrong with that? Now, when it comes down to after all of those things, you're like, well, I don't have any of that, Paul. I got nothing. Do you have internet? I know you do, because you're listening to the sound of my voice right now. Go to studentofthegun.com. Check out the videos right there. We have the shows up. We have show archives. So if you missed one, you can go watch it. Read the articles, do all that good stuff. Don't forget to, if you like Student of the Gun, if you're happy that we're producing this show for you, support the people who support us. Crossbreed Holsters, XS Sights, Keltec, you name it. If you like Student of the Gun, let them know. Say, hey, I'm here because Student of the Gun told me to come here. And congratulations again to our contest winner, Eric Williams, who's going to get a free 2-day tuition to any tactical response class. Remember, it could be you. But don't forget, you're a beginner once, but you should be a student for life.